John was a man who had seen better days. He used to have a job, a small apartment, and a happy life. But hard times came, and life took a turn that left him homeless. John had nowhere to go, and he spent most nights on a bench in a park, alone, with only his old blanket to keep him warm. One cold evening, as John was wandering the streets looking for a safe spot to sleep, he noticed something strange. A thick cloud of smoke was rising from an old brick building across the street. It was a two-story apartment complex. John squinted his eyes to see if it was real, or if it was just a trick of the dark. But he realized quickly that it was real. There was a fire. People were shouting, and some were running outside. Panic filled the air. John felt his heart race as he saw people fleeing the burning building. He could hear the distant wail of a fire truck's siren, but it was far away. He noticed the faces of frightened families standing outside. And then he saw something that made his stomach drop. A little girl, no more than 5 or 6 years old, was stuck on the second floor, screaming for help. John didn't think twice. He dropped his blanket and ran toward the building. He climbed the stairs that were hot to the touch, ignoring the smoke that made his eyes burn and his throat hurt. He could see the flames licking at the walls, but he kept moving. He had to save that little girl. He reached the second floor and found her. She was standing near a window, crying and scared. John knelt down and looked her in the eyes. "Hey there, I'm here to help," he said softly, trying to smile despite the chaos. The little girl looked at him, her face wet with tears, and nodded. John picked her up in his arms, holding her tightly. He turned back and ran toward the stairs, but they were already engulfed in flames. He couldn't go back that way. He quickly scanned the room and noticed an old fire escape ladder just outside the window. With his free hand, John opened the window, the cool night air rushing in. He stepped onto the fire escape, carefully holding the little girl close. Step by step, he made his way down, every creak of the metal sounding like it could give way. But he didn't stop. Finally, John reached the ground. He handed the little girl to her mother, who was waiting below, her eyes wide with fear and hope. The woman burst into tears, hugging her daughter tightly. She looked at John, her eyes filled with gratitude. Thank you so much," she said, her voice shaking. John nodded, giving a small smile, but he didn't stay. He didn't want any attention. He wasn't a hero, he thought. Just someone who did what anyone should do. He turned and walked back toward his bench in the park, his body aching and his lungs burning from the smoke. The next morning, John woke up on his usual bench. The sun was shining, and he could hear birds chirping. He rubbed his eyes and sat up, his body still sore from the night before. But something was different. Parked just a few feet away was a car, a luxury car, shiny and black, looking completely out of place in the area. John blinked, confused. He looked around, thinking maybe someone had parked there by mistake. But then he noticed a man in a suit standing next to the car. The man smiled at John and walked over. "Are you John?" the man asked. John nodded slowly, unsure of what was happening. The man smiled even wider. "Someone would like to thank you for what you did last night," he said, gesturing toward the car. John's heart skipped a beat. He stood up, still confused. The man opened the back door of the car, and to John's surprise, the mother of the little girl stepped out. She was holding her daughter's hand, and they both looked at John with grateful smiles. "Hello, John," the mother said, her voice soft but full of emotion. "You saved my little girl. I can't thank you enough for what you did. You're a hero." John shook his head, looking down. "I'm no hero," he said quietly. "I just did what anyone would do." The mother stepped closer and placed a hand on his arm. "You risked your life for my daughter, and that means everything to me," she said. "We want to help you, John. Please, let us do something for you." John looked up, his eyes meeting the little girl's. She smiled at him, her eyes bright and innocent. "Thank you, mister," she said, her small voice filled with sincerity. The mother gestured toward the car. "We want to give you a new start. We have a place for you to stay, and we can help you get back on your feet. You don't deserve to be out here." John felt a lump in his throat. He had been alone for so long, forgotten by the world. Now, here was this family, offering him a chance, all because he helped when no one else would. He blinked, trying to keep his emotions in check. "Why would you do this for me?" he asked. The mother smiled gently. "Because you showed us kindness when you didn't have to, and the world needs more people like you. Please, let us help." John looked at the car, then back at the little girl and her mother. He could feel the warmth of their kindness, something he hadn't felt in a long time. Slowly, he nodded. "Okay," he said, his voice cracking just a little. The mother's eyes filled with tears again, but they were happy tears. She hugged John briefly, and then the man in the suit opened the door wider. John climbed into the car, the seat softer than anything he had felt in years. The little girl climbed in next to him, still holding her mother's hand. She looked at John and smiled. "Are you going to be okay now?" she asked. John smiled back, his heart full. Yes, sweetheart. I think I'm going to be okay now. The car drove off, leaving the park and the bench behind. For the first time in a long time, John felt hope. He had saved a life, and now, maybe, his own life was about to change for the better. It wasn't just a rescue, it was a new beginning.